Imagine spending 15 years as a slave, forced to forge divine weapons for the monster who wiped out your entire family. Tangon, a demonic blacksmith, tried to take revenge one last time, only to be killed in a single strike. It should have been the end, but when he opened his eyes, he found himself sent 16 years into the past. Now, with full knowledge of the future and mastery over his enemy's forbidden techniques, everything has changed. This time, he won't be making weapons for them. He'll use those very weapons to hunt them down one by one. Our story opens with a lone blacksmith, his back facing us, hammering fiercely at his forge with raw strength and determination. He lifts his hammer again, ready to strike the glowing metal once more. With smooth, practiced movements, he continues working without any sign of exhaustion. Suddenly, a ghost appears and asks if he truly believes he can reach his goal. The spirit presses further, questioning whether the young man is really ready to follow through on this path of revenge. The spirit snaps at him to drop the nonsense and asks if what he's really feeling is guilt. An annoyed Tangon fires back, telling it to leave if it's only going to spout meaningless talk. Unbothered, he shuts the figure out completely and returns to hammering the metal, his resolve unbreakable. Suddenly, a horrifying memory surfaces, an image of a young girl meeting a cruel end. Then comes another, his homeland reduced to ruins, him kneeling in the middle of total devastation. Another painful scene follows, his father dying in his arms during the enemy's assault. The shock was so great that his hair turned white as he screamed in agony beneath the pouring rain. Back in the present, the ghost coldly remarks on the irony of him preaching revenge after forging weapons himself. With open contempt, the specter declares that this entire pursuit is nothing but a ridiculous contradiction. The protagonist just. He closes his eyes for a brief moment, letting the spirit's words sink in, then opens them again and coldly says he doesn't care about its opinion. With a sharp, unwavering stare, the artisan declares that his resolve hasn't changed and that he will carry this through to the very end. The scene shifts to the man holding a wooden box, an important item sealed inside. He is the blacksmith of the blood cult, having lived 15 years as the demonic artisan. As he walks toward a temple, he reflects on the tragedy he helped create, knowing it can never be undone. Reading the sign at the entrance, he decides that with his own hands, he will bring everything to an end. His face is filled with absolute determination, showing he's ready to finish this once and for all. The gates open, allowing the demonic artisan to step into the grand main hall. Inside, a massive ceremony unfolds, with thousands kneeling before their Lord. A man announces that demonic heaven has conquered the world and that the blood cult now rules it. He then presents the one behind it all, the supreme ruler known as the Blood Demon. Sitting upon his throne, the terrifying leader watches with a commanding, overwhelming gaze. The announcer declares that the demonic artisan will honor him by presenting the elephant divine weapon. Tangon walks through the hall with the box in his hands, thinking that he doesn't care whether this counts as redemption or not. Reaching the throne, he finally kneels and presents the offering to his master. Dropping to one knee, the blacksmith lifts the wooden box and hands it to the man who announced him. The moment it opens, a surge of violent purple energy bursts out, stunning everyone in the grand hall. The demon lord's subordinate freezes in shock, unable to understand what's unfolding before his eyes. Inside the box, he glimpses a small dagger, glowing with intense light, and wonders what it could be. The weapon begins to float, and he shouts that there's nothing there, that it must be an illusion. With cold resolve, Tangon thinks that today, all of this finally ends. In the next instant, the dagger morphs into a blade of pure energy and rockets toward the demon servant. The impact unleashes a massive shockwave that rips through the hall. The servant screams in panic, demanding to know what kind of trick this is as the energy slams into him. He stares at his shredded clothes, utterly stunned and unable to believe the blacksmith's power. Then the artisan releases a second surge, far stronger than the first. The energy rushes forward toward the throne, obliterating everything in its path. The blade of pure energy closes in on the demon, yet he watches it all with unsettling calm. The leader of the blood cult remains seated on his throne, showing no reaction as the attack bears down on him. When the sword finally strikes, a massive explosion erupts, tearing the palace apart. Even after landing the hit, the protagonist is left stunned by the sheer outcome of his own technique. The blood demon emerges completely unharmed, casually gripping the energy blade between two fingers. "It's not over yet," he says, as a sinister purple aura begins to glow around his hand. With a single effortless motion, the cult leader disperses the blacksmith's attack as if it were nothing. Gritting his teeth, Tangon channels the very blood arts the demon once taught him, preparing one final assault. He is ready to burn away his life and every last bit of energy to bring his enemy down. His eyes shine with a deep purple light as the artisan gathers all his power. With a roar, he declares he will take the demon lord's life and unleashes a colossal beam of energy straight toward the throne. The attack slams into the demon lord head-on, triggering an explosion even greater than the last. The shockwave is so overwhelming that it wipes out the hall and everything surrounding it. One of the servants stares in disbelief, wondering how that wretch managed to master so many martial arts. When the dust finally settles, the throne lies in ruins and the demon lord is nowhere to be seen. Badly wounded, the protagonist collapses to his knees, one leg torn open by a deep injury. Blood spills from his mouth as he smiles faintly, believing he has finally achieved his revenge. Then a voice calls him amusing. The demon lord appears behind him, eyes burning with rage. Examining the energy dagger, he remarks that it has no physical form and cannot be sensed. Despite a wound on his head, he praises the weapon, calling it a divine artifact worthy of its title. Tangon is stunned, unable to understand how the demon knew about the dagger, or how he survived. Before he can react, the demon drives a crushing punch into his face. He then reveals the true dagger and asks his loyal servant if he still fails to grasp the situation. With cold certainty, the villain declares that even for a descendant of the Tang clan, revenge is utterly meaningless. Furious, the artisan is seized by the neck and snarls at the demon lord shut his filthy mouth. The cult leader calmly replies that he would have kept him alive if he still had any strength left. The blacksmith cuts him off, telling him to drop the nonsense, and cursing him for all eternity. The lord smirks and says he hopes the artisan lives up to his expectations, promising him one final gift. As he speaks, he begins chanting a strange incantation, dark energy spilling from his mouth. Terror grips the protagonist as he demands to know what the demon lord is doing. In the next instant, a mysterious force hurls him into the air at uncontrollable speed. He screams in agony and despair as he's flung away, powerless to resist. The cult leader doesn't stop there, readying another devastating attack to end the young man for good. With a sharp flick of his wrist, he fires a crimson sphere of energy toward the artisan. The energy reshapes into the form of a dagger and streaks through the air at blinding speed, poised to pierce its airborne target. Pure terror fills the blacksmith's face as he watches the deadly attack rush toward him, leaving no room to escape. In an instant, it strikes him head-on, unleashing devastating force. The energy dagger drives straight through his chest, and the protagonist is finally brought down by the demon lord. As his lifeless body falls, a single thought crosses his mind. When did everything go so horribly wrong? Sinking into the water, he reflects on his life, remembering how he was born with a flawed dantian and never wished to create artifacts in the first place. He wonders if things might have turned out differently had he known what the future held. And so ends the life of the cruelest divine artisan under the heavens, the demonic artisan. After a moment of complete darkness, the scene abruptly shifts to a restaurant table covered in food. A fist suddenly slams down hard, accompanied by a loud shout that snaps someone to attention. A man demands to know if he's even listening, but the protagonist is utterly confused. He looks around, questioning where he is, as the place feels completely unfamiliar. The restaurant is loud and chaotic. His head throbs painfully, and the confusion only deepens. He is certain his breathing had stopped before, but now, every one of his senses feels shockingly vivid. The man yells that his words aren't getting through and demands to know what happened with the demon. Turning to leave, he warns young Master Deng to get a grip on reality. Then he pauses, raising a hand, and adds that a disobedient dog needs to be taught a lesson. With that, he lands a full-force punch on the protagonist's face, sending him flying sideways. Tangon touches his cheek in confusion. He feels absolutely nothing from the blow. The attacker asks if he's finally awake, and the young man begins to recognize the people around him. Realization hits as he turns his gaze behind him, and what he sees leaves him both shocked and enraged. A young woman is on the floor, crying, and he immediately recognizes her as the young clan leader's seal. Hatred floods his eyes as memories of her tragic fate from his previous life flash before him. The terrible images of her suffering hit him with full force, and he suddenly understands. He has been sent 16 years into the past, arriving at Lee Ho-sun's acceptance party. On this day, Seoul suffered, and Tangon had been powerless to protect her from that cruel fate. Now, the artisan is certain. He has been sent back to the very moment the tragedy first unfolded. For a brief second, he wonders if it's all a dream, but quickly dismisses the thought. It doesn't matter either way. He steps toward the girl and gently comforts her, telling her that everything will be all right and she has nothing to fear. He apologizes for failing to protect her before and vows that even if this is a dream, things will be different this time. The aggressor, enraged by the scene, lunges to attack again, but Tangon will no longer back down. In a lightning-fast move, he seizes the man's fist before it can land. Calmly, he offers the attacker a chance to apologize properly, but the man freezes, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. The man yells that his words aren't getting through and demands to know what happened with the demon. But the man freezes, completely stunned by the sudden turn of events. The attacker yells that Tangon has finally lost his mind and swings his other fist at him. He mocks the girl, claiming she seduced him, and asks if the protagonist really wants to meet his end. Tangon snaps back, saying his sister was wise to reject that man's marriage proposal. He adds that even he would have rejected him, and that the man's very presence is disgusting. Enraged, the attacker screams for him to shut his mouth. But the artisan simply ignores him, asking how anyone in the world could ever like someone like him. Blinded by hatred, the man draws his sword, determined to end Tangon's life on the spot. He snarls that the young man's nature is ugly and he'll see if he can even speak after this. With a furious cry, he lunges, aiming to strike him down. But to his shock, Tangon effortlessly dodges the attack, leaving the man stunned and speechless. The protagonist remembers how last time he couldn't even defend himself and was brutally beaten. But now everything has changed. He dodges each strike with incredible speed and precision. A confident smile forms on his face as he wonders if that's really all his enemy can do. The attacker's anger flares, getting cocky just for dodging one simple attack. He growls, summoning a new strike. His sword glows with a menacing, powerful energy. "You won't be lucky twice," he shouts, lunging at Tangon. But to his shock, the attack fails. Tangon asks himself, surprised, why it isn't working. With a swift move, he blocks the sword with his scabbard, sending sparks flying from the impact, a clear display of the protagonist's sheer strength. In the next instant, he pushes the aggressor back, completely unbalancing him in the fight. Tangon's eyes burn with unwavering determination. He will no longer be the victim. Next, Tangon delivers a crushing kick to the man's chest, sending him flying across the hall with unstoppable force. The attacker screams in agony as his body slams into walls and furniture, struggling to recover from the sheer power behind the blow. Shock and disbelief freeze him in place. He can't comprehend the sudden surge in his opponent's strength. Suddenly, Tangon's eyes ignite with a sinister red glow, radiating an overwhelming aura of power. Fear spreads across his enemy's face as he witnesses the artisan's transformation. Cold and calculating, Tangon promises that his revenge will be nothing short of terrible. Surrounded by searing red energy, he closes in on the man at impossible speed. With flawless precision, he blocks another attack using only his scabbard, demonstrating his superior skill. Panic overtakes the aggressor as he scrambles to defend himself, but it's already too late. In one swift, merciless strike, Tangon cuts his enemy's arm. The man screams, clutching the injury as he collapses to his knees on the hall floor. Standing over him, the artisan's voice is calm yet deadly. "It's a shame if you think it's over. We're just getting started." His foe glares, baffled. How could a nobody from the fallen Tang clan wield so much power? Memories of his past humiliation flash before him, reminding him of every insult he suffered before his downfall. Burning with hatred, he vows he will never let this go. Slowly, he drags himself closer to the injured man, who shouts for him to stop. Tangon's voice is calm but deadly. "I'm no hero of justice. It's time we settle this." The artisan leans in, letting the man tremble in fear, warning him to brace for what's coming. His sword begins to glow with ominous red energy as he declares that his next strike will find the enemy's heart. The onlookers gasp, unable to believe how easily Liho's son fell. One whispers in shock that the outcome was obvious: the disciple versus a nobody. Without hesitation, Tangon presses the sword against the man's neck. Some bystanders plead for the fight to stop, but fear grips the others, and they scatter into the establishment. The protagonist stands motionless, his back to us, a crimson aura radiating from his body. Suddenly, a surge of purple energy ignites intensely within his dantian, making him tense with concern. A trickle of blood slides from his mouth, and Tangon realizes that using his power is taking a toll. He knows he must hold back. He absolutely cannot reveal his demonic energy here. Looking down at the man on the floor, he says coldly that he didn't care about being belittled all his life, but he should have at least kept some basic human decency and never mistreated the girl. Furious, the enemy scrambles to his feet, yelling for the protagonist to disappear and leave him alone. Tangon's sword glows ominously as he declares that the man deserves a terrible fate. With a surge of red energy, he strikes a devastating blow to his opponent's chest. At that moment, an unknown voice echoes through the hall, demanding to know who is causing all the chaos. A new warrior suddenly appears, blocking Tangon's attack with his own sword. The newcomer radiates power, halting the artisan's blow with seemingly little effort. Tangon steps back, surprised, as the man orders young Master Deng to stop the fight. Then 4 more warriors arrive, announcing they can no longer ignore the situation. They're the personal guard unit assigned to each disciple of the Dragon Successor Guards. Their leader, Commander Sun Yugon, looks at him with open contempt and calls him a useless wretch. The young man's eyes sharpen as he realizes they've been scheming from the very beginning. Alongside Liho's son, these men would one day be known as the worst traitors of the Martial Alliance. Remembering their future betrayal, he decides they must all be dealt with right here and now. The guard commander then coldly asks what will happen if they choose not to ignore the situation. The artisan calmly replies that Liho's son is not yet an official disciple of the Martial Alliance. The commander is clearly shaken by this, unsure how to respond. He knows the statement is true, yet can't understand how the young man could know such a closely guarded secret. The protagonist then adds that they all stood by in silence while an innocent woman was being harassed. The guard points sharply and shouts that punishment isn't his to deliver. Alliance members are bound by law. The artisan only smirks, clearly unconcerned with rules. He asks coldly if that is the standard of the righteous path, leaving the commander speechless. With an ironic grin, he adds that they're truly fair and impartial with people. Fury boils over in the commander. He screams that the young man has no right to dishonor the great Martial Alliance. "This is your last chance," he roars. "Kneel and apologize now." The protagonist only scoffs, questioning if the commander earned his position through mere smooth talking. Filled with hatred, the guard clenches his fists and declares that the young man's arrogance pierces the heavens. Running out of patience, he orders his subordinates to capture the artisan immediately. As the guards advance, Tangon notes that Commander Sun Yugon is at the peak master level. He also counts 3 other first-rate warriors he'll have to face. Wasting no time, the protagonist leaps into combat, crossing swords with one of the guards in a blur of motion. The clash of steel rings through the hall, the sheer force of the impact shaking the air. With swift, agile movements, he slips past one strike and readies himself for the next. Another warrior lunges from behind in a surprise attack, but the young man twists away just in time. He ducks low as a horizontal slash whistles past, missing his head by inches. Surrounded on all sides, the artisan remains calm, watching them closely as he waits for the perfect opening. His eyes track every motion, carefully reading their patterns and weaknesses. Even outnumbered, he moves with smooth precision, evading every attack without a single wasted step. He knows that after using the one-point technique, he only has 2 years of internal energy left. Because of that, he decides this fight must end quickly. One of the guards roars and charges in a reckless assault. The artisan responds by leaping cleanly over him in an impressive acrobatic motion. While still in midair, he strikes the guard's neck with a swift, precise blow, giving the man no chance to react. The man crashes to the floor, completely out of the fight. Without missing a beat, the protagonist unleashes a powerful energy slash at another guard, sending him flying across the hall with staggering force. Even the commander stares in shock at the display. The last remaining warrior screams that the wretch is mocking them, that he's nothing but a nobody. But the artisan's determined gaze never wavers as he grips his sword, ready for the final showdown. Terrified by Tangan's power, the guard stammers, calling him a monster, and instinctively backs away. The commander roars in frustration, demanding if he can't go a little easier on his men. Tangan blinks in surprise, unable to believe what he just heard from the guard leader. With his eyes burning red, the commander launches a personal attack, his strike packed with overwhelming strength. The force hurls Tangan back, slamming him into the wooden floor with such violence that it splinters beneath him. Lying on the splintered floor, the protagonist watches the guard commander approach, radiating superiority. The man shouts, mocking him. How dare nobody cause such chaos? He sneers, insisting the young man belongs on the ground, calling him nothing more than third-rate warrior trash. He presses further, asking if the blacksmith even understands the cost of his defiance. Tangan smirks faintly, muttering that the commander is far too loud and can't even let him have a moment's peace. He knows that, even if he has to force it, this is the best method left to him. His eyes ignite with a piercing blue glow as he decides he has no choice but to open his dantian. The sight of the blue energy shocks the commander. What is he doing? He asks, incredulous. He insists it won't change the outcome, but Tangan calmly replies that in the alliance, disputes are settled with action, not words. Surrounded by crackling blue lightning, he challenges his enemy to stop talking nonsense and come fight. The commander's sword flares green as he growls. If you want to meet your end, then so be it. With that, he leaps into the air, promising to grant the blacksmith's wish and finish him once and for all. Tangan steels himself, blue energy crackling around him, his expression resolute as he prepares to meet the attack head-on. His eyes burn with focused intensity, every ounce of his power brought to bear. All at once, the formless dagger materializes, leaving the commander staring in disbelief, wondering why it's there. The young man himself questions whether the weapon entered his dantian when he died, and how it could have followed him here. The guard scoffs, saying it's already over. No matter the reason, what matters is that the weapon is now within his grasp. In the next instant, both daggers drop to the floor, lying still for a brief moment. Channeling his energy, the protagonist pulls them back toward himself, declaring that he'll finish everything with a single strike. But suddenly, a surge of brilliant golden energy erupts, flooding the entire area. The mysterious light washes over both warriors, freezing them in place and leaving them stunned. The commander panics as he realizes his body no longer responds to his will. Then, through the blinding glow, a pair of feet slowly steps forward toward the two men. Paralyzed by the overwhelming energy, Tangan is stunned as an elderly figure slowly appears before him. Without warning, the old man places a steady hand on his shoulder and addresses him as young man in a calm yet commanding voice. He warns him not to use such power carelessly, deepening the young man's shock. Tangan instantly recognizes him, the strongest martial artist of the current era. One by one, everyone in the hall drops to their knees, greeting the newcomer with reverence. This legend is none other than the master of the martial alliance, the great sword emperor himself, Eugene Hack. The protagonist remains silent, struggling to process the immense presence standing right before him. A painful memory surfaces as he recalls a tragic chapter of his past life. The war against the blood cult had reached its peak, and the alliance's defeat seemed unavoidable. Most warriors had knelt before the cult, surrendering in disgrace. But the alliance leader and his sect, the Wuan clan, were different. They fought on until the very end. The Sword Emperor, guardian of the righteous path, had taken up his blade day after day, fighting without rest until he was finally slain by the very divine weapon the blacksmith had created. Back in the present, the young man calmly picks up his dagger from the floor, his expression serious. He knows this isn't the time for sentimentality, and more importantly, the leader didn't sense the weapon. Since not even the blood demon had known of the dagger's existence, it made sense that the Sword Emperor wouldn't either. Focusing his thoughts, the artisan considers his next problem, wondering if he could counterattack should the Sword Emperor suddenly turn hostile. The leader smiles faintly, remarking that the situation is both rare and peculiar. He admits that he can't perceive anything about the young man at all, something he has never experienced before. With clear curiosity, the old man adds that the youth seems to possess an extremely interesting talent. Tangan stays on high alert, unable to read the leader's true intentions. The Sword Emperor then turns to the girl, gently saying that she must have been frightened by everything that happened. Suddenly, a woman appears at her side, softly comforting her and assuring her that everything is fine now. She tells the girl to rest a little longer before standing, as it's all over. The protagonist is stunned. He never sensed the woman's presence at all, and he wonders who she could be. The leader scolds the woman for disappearing, and she calmly replies that she didn't have time to act because of the sudden surge of energy. She then apologizes to her companion as the artisan quietly watches their exchange. When he hears the name Byun, his heart skips a beat, and his suspicion is confirmed. She is exactly who he thought she was, the divine Dr. Byun, former leader of the EMA sect and a legendary master healer. The young man immediately realizes how complicated the situation has become now that even the divine doctor is involved. The scene then shifts back in time to 15 minutes earlier, revealing a pagoda standing over a quiet lake. The doctor is speaking with the Sword Emperor, asking if she hadn't warned him about this happening again and again. Looking exhausted, the Emperor replies that those wretches will never change their ways. He explains that many within the Alliance have long forgotten the meaning of justice, and that is precisely why he took on the role of leader, to correct that corruption. With a heavy sigh, the Sword Emperor laments that even after all these years, nothing in the world has truly changed. The doctor asks if he truly believed fixing the world would ever be easy. With a teasing, mocking tone, she calls him a fool for thinking so simply and naively. The two continue their serious discussion amid the calm, beautiful scenery. Boyan advises him not to shoulder the weight of the entire world alone on his already weary shoulders. She half-jokingly suggests that if it ever becomes too much, he should just give up and relax like she does every day. The Sword Emperor lets out a light chuckle at his old friend's words, but his expression suddenly hardens as he senses a strange disturbance in the air. The doctor scolds him, warning that it's no laughing matter. He could fall to his inner demons. She cuts herself off when she realizes the leader felt the same energy she did. Irritated, she curses him for sensing it before her and rushing off on his own. Back in the present, she wonders how such a thing is even possible. As the leader remarks on how fast she arrived, the woman states that the damage is far too severe, something not even a divine heal. The commander blurts out that a third-rate nobody like Tangon defeated a first-rate master. Hearing this, the protagonist silently confirms that the doctor's assessment is absolutely correct. She then asks if he truly relied on projectile techniques to win the fight. The Sword Emperor narrows his eyes, realizing there may be far more to this story than he initially thought. With a grave expression, the leader releases a powerful aura that crashes down on everyone in the main hall. The pressure is suffocating. The commander shouts that the injuries are far too severe and that the young man must find a way out of this situation. Kneeling on the floor, the protagonist wonders how everything became so complicated so quickly. He admits that he never intended to interfere, but as someone who still believes in righteousness, he had no other choice. The Sword Emperor calmly replies that he understands, his eyes never leaving the injured youth. Then, with an intimidating gaze, he asks how the young man plans to explain everything that has happened. The artisan answers without hesitation, there is nothing to explain. He merely used his clan's martial arts. His blood flows with the heritage of the Tang clan, and even what he did to his enemies was not enough. He declares that his explanation ends there, and from this moment on, there will be no more courtesies. As his sword ignites with red light, he warns that he will no longer go easy on anyone present. The Sword Emperor locks his gaze on him, one eye blazing with intense golden light. He asks if the young man is truly willing to throw his life away over a moment of foolish emotion. Then the Alliance Master activates his supreme technique, the Golden Light Eye, allowing him to see through everything. Crushed by the overwhelming pressure, the protagonist pants heavily, sweat pouring down as he struggles to endure the Grand Leader's gaze. The Master questions whether revenge is really worth more than one's life. The young man answers calmly that this isn't some fleeting impulse. Lost in darkness, surrounded by memories of ruin and destruction, he reflects that in this life, he will choose a different path. He says he is only trying to change his destiny, to mend this broken world piece by piece with his own hands. Even if it means burning his life away, he declares he will walk the same road as the leader. Eugene Hack recalls his own past doubts and asks if the young man truly desires such a path. Sensing the sincerity in his heart, the The Sword Emperor slowly draws his blade. Tangon is caught off guard, unable to understand why the Alliance Master has unsheathed his sword. Then, without warning, the leader releases a terrifying technique, and multiple blades of energy materialize in the air around him. One of the energy blades slams into the ground with tremendous force, sending a shockwave rippling outward. The clashing energies form a massive yin-yang symbol, with the two warriors standing at its center. The blacksmith watches in awe, realizing the technique contains countless Taiji principles woven into a single motion. He finds it breathtaking, convinced he could learn endlessly just by studying its flow. For a sword like this, he thinks he wouldn't even mind meeting his end. He admires how the wooden sword perfectly blends strength within softness. Suddenly, the Sword Emperor shouts with the full power of his lungs, and the scene shifts. In the next instant, he stands before Li Ho's son, calling his name in anger. The aggressor looks up in shock, stammering his master's name, unable to believe what he's seeing. He crawls toward the leader, relieved, claiming that his master has finally come to save him. The doctor immediately scolds him for causing trouble and for cursing someone who had just returned from the brink of death. The Sword Emperor points his sword at his disciple and declares that the young man before him had risked his life for honor. He then coldly asks Li Ho's son what his orders are, leaving the disciple completely speechless. The leader says it was a pointless question. The man hurriedly tries to justify himself, claiming he was willing to take risks, but the master snaps, telling him to shut his mouth before his ears rot from hearing such nonsense. Turning away, the Sword Emperor apologizes to Tangon, stating that he takes full responsibility for everything that happened. Li Ho shouts after his master in disbelief as the old man turns his back on him. With a cold, unwavering tone, the leader declares that he has never had a disciple like that man. He then tells the artisan that the boy's punishment will be left entirely to his discretion. Terror floods the aggressor's face as he sees the protagonist approaching, shrouded in a dark aura. Li Ho screams for him not to come any closer, but the young man replies that even a final rest would be a luxury he does not deserve. His fist begins to glow blue as he gathers power for the strike. A massive wave of blue energy erupts, crashing toward the aggressor with overwhelming force. Tangon grabs the man by the collar, his hand blazing with power as a sphere of crackling lightning forms in his palm, ready to unleash devastating damage. The blow sends the man flying across the hall with absurd violence, his body smashing into the wooden floor. He screams in agony as the merciless attack lands. Cold and resolute, Tangon declares that the man must live in suffering far worse than death for all the wrongs he has committed. The Sword Emperor watches everything unfold in silence, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he asks the young man if he would be willing to leave the final judgment to him instead. Believing the leader will ensure a fair outcome, the artisan decides it's best to step back. With a respectful gesture, he thanks the master for preserving his dignity and overlooking his earlier rudeness. He then turns and walks toward the young woman, who is still kneeling on the floor in fear. Gently helping her up, he tells her that he will visit her clan once he finishes dealing with this matter. With his back to the leader, he asks if the master might spare some time for him later. The Sword Emperor replies with calm confidence that he can certainly make time. Smiling slightly, the young man adds that it will be for nothing more than a simple cup of tea. The scene then shifts to Sichuan, to a famous mountain known as Tang Mountain. It once bore a different name, but over time people began calling it Tang Mountain because the largest territory of the powerful Tang clan was located there. However, despite all its glory and influence, the clan's era of power did not last forever. The Tang clan eventually fell from one of the 7 great houses to nothing more than a mid-sized force. Elsewhere, a man asks a woman if she'll be all right, only for her to scold him for leaving her behind. She is Deng Rin's son's older sister, and without hesitation, she summons the Blackfire Squadron for a mission. She declares that their top priority is ensuring the safety of the young clan leader. Giving swift orders, she commands everyone to depart at once, and an army immediately begins preparing for the rescue operation. Sir Ren warns them all to brace for the worst, but suddenly, she freezes in surprise. In the distance, she sees a familiar figure approaching and asks in disbelief if that is really young Deng Si-woon, carrying the girl in his arms. The protagonist finally returns home and calmly says, "I'm back." The young woman rushes forward and hugs him tightly, clinging to him for comfort. Still confused, the young man asks where everyone was rushing off to in such a hurry. Later, back in his quarters, he opens a small box containing a portrait. His eyes fall on the image of the blood demon, and once more, the artisan remembers his greatest enemy. Tengan thinks to himself, realizing with a mix of awe and determination that he really did manage to go back in time. The villain's last words echo in his mind, promising that they would meet again. The blacksmith can't help but wonder if this return was all part of the demon. Shadows of anger cross his face as he reflects on the situation, but he swears to himself that no matter the scheme, the demon will regret it. With unwavering resolve, he affirms that this new life will be entirely different. He walks over to a bookshelf and carefully pulls out an important tome for his training. The ancient book details the metal circulation technique, a blacksmithing skill of immense complexity. His eyes blaze with focus as he prepares for what comes next. Glancing at a puddle on the floor, he wonders if it's a remnant from before. Suddenly, he spits out a dark liquid, pain surging through his body. He realizes with a jolt that circulating energy through meditation, something that should have come naturally, is completely failing him. The technique was originally meant to aid in forging, with the added benefit of enhancing the body's regeneration. But its efficiency for energy accumulation was terrible, and his body treated it like a poison. With no other choice, the artisan resolves that he must push forward regardless. Yet it was this very technique that had once allowed him to craft divine artifacts, and now, combined with the demon arts he had learned for revenge, it offers a new path forward. Tengan sits cross-legged on the floor, beginning his training and focusing his energy. He reflects that his deformed dantian, once a curse, could not be corrected before. Though the situation mirrors his first life after returning in time, he approaches the practice with renewed intensity and unyielding determination. He tells himself that, this time, his progress will far outpace his previous attempt. Hours pass, and day turns to night. Under the glow of the full moon over the Tang clan, he continues his practice until the night is fully upon him. Finally, he feels a profound shift. His meridians and dantian are now completely connected. Sitting in a steady lotus position, he senses that his energy has fully stabilized. With this breakthrough, his mastery of the metal circulation technique reaches 50%, while the secondary technique sits at 10%. Both techniques rely on the upper dantian and his innate energy to function properly. While the metal circulation technique recovers energy, the other skill increases its overall capacity. Tengan smiles confidently, realizing that no one would believe he could achieve such a feat. And now, he can control his innate energy freely. He closes his eyes for a moment, focusing on something else equally important. Since he has sealed his energy, even its scent can't escape, and he decides it's time to change clothes. Rising from the floor, he pauses, remembering something, and begins walking calmly around the room. His gaze falls on the formless dagger, and he wonders why it chose to return with him. Suddenly, a noise catches his attention, and he instantly goes on alert. At the door, a young boy peeks in, his expression a mix of fear and nervousness. The boy apologizes, explaining that the clan leader has summoned him to the Hall of 1,000 Rains. He insists it's urgent, but the protagonist only nods, thinking it's about time he was called. Stepping closer, Tengan asks if the boy's name is Jangil. The youth freezes in shock. How could the young clan leader possibly know his name? Yes, he stammers, confirming it, still wide-eyed with disbelief. With a gentle smile, the artisan greets the young boy and says it's good to see him again after so long. He then strides through the Tang clan's corridors, his expression serious and filled with determination. Reaching his destination, he stops before the grand main hall, the Hall of 1,000 Rains. From inside, the sound of a heated argument reaches his ears, voices shouting in anger. Without hesitation, Tengan pushes open the hall doors and steps into the midst of the clan elders' meeting. Inside, all the leaders and elders are seated around a long wooden table. One older man fixes him with a glare full of contempt and fury. Unfazed, the young man walks calmly toward the table, his composure unshaken by their presence. A painful memory flashes through his mind. He recalls the moment he was gravely injured, teetering on the edge of a terrible fate. Another memory follows, his father dying tragically in his helpless arms. Yet now, standing before everyone, he radiates power and authority. With a formal gesture, He introduces himself as the young leader of the Tang clan, the Great Dang One. A memory of his terrible past haunts him, showing his pain and suffering. But now in the present, he gives a formal greeting to the clan elders. With a serious look, he states that he came on the order of the Tang clan leader. The clan leader, Dang Mu, yelled and tells him to rise in a firm voice. The protagonist obeys the command and slowly stands up to face everyone. The elders whisper among themselves, wondering how he can be so confident. He then turns his head and says that the Tang clan is in a poisoned state. The young man says the discussion was going well, that because of 2 poisons, they can continue. One of the men then raises his hand, saying he will continue the conversation. He is Dango Yao, the head of the Manhwa escort agency, an important man. He believes the young leader knows the gravity of the incident he caused. For the good of the clan, he begs the young man to go to the Martial Alliance's hall. Unfazed, the protagonist calls him by name, identifying him as the first poison. A dark image reveals that everything the man has built is rooted in pure greed. Standing tall and confident, the protagonist remains firm in his stance. He then swears that he will take everything from the man, no matter what. A memory from the past, which now shapes the future, comes to him through a conversation. His uncle only replies that it is exactly as he said, offering no further explanation. A worried young nephew asks if he understands what will happen to the clan, but the uncle coldly answers that this is the very reason he is leaving. Shocked and unable to believe it, the young man realizes his uncle has betrayed them. The uncle says the youth does not understand and that he has been waiting for this moment for a very long time. This truth leaves the young man stunned and unable to speak. With a twisted smile, the uncle declares that the Tang clan will now belong to him. Back in the present, the protagonist thinks that if he had not reached 50% mastery and gained the ability to create artifacts, the clan would have collapsed financially. Suddenly, another elder rises and angrily calls out to the escort chief. He is Dang Jun, the head of the medicine hall, and he scolds him for being disrespectful. He warns that no one sent to the law enforcement hall ever returned without serious harm. The man acts as if he is troubled, though he clearly has a plan. He asks whether the dagger is not just a basic training weapon for beginners. He then questions how such a weapon could defeat an elite warrior. The young man explains that using his innate energy shortens his life, so punishing the attacker was reasonable. He then turns to his uncle and asks if his doubts have now been answered. One elder remarks that he truly risked his life and fought with great courage. Another elder asks if he really used his energy, saying he looked normal before. The protagonist replies that it was thanks to the alliance leader and the divine doctor who healed him. His uncle suddenly shouts that it is a lie and rushes toward the clan leader to warn him. The traitorous elder realizes the situation has become dangerous and that he must act quickly. At that moment, the Martial Alliance leader appears at the entrance of the hall, stunning everyone present. The elders are shocked by the sudden arrival of the Alliance's Grandmaster. The protagonist smiles quietly as his plan continues to unfold perfectly. The master greets everyone, asking if they have been well during the past few days. The clan leader responds with a formal salute and introduces himself to the Great Sword Emperor. He apologizes for not welcoming him properly, but the Sword Emperor tells him not to worry. The clan leader thanks him for his understanding, saying he will not take offense. The others in the hall are shocked, unable to understand what the clan leader just said. The escort chief asks what he means, but the protagonist stares at him with open contempt. The man begins to introduce himself, but the Sword Emperor cuts him off with a frightening glare. Surrounded by golden aura, he orders the man to step aside and stay silent, leaving him shaken with fear. The Sword Emperor then says that, as everyone can see, there is no need for formalities, and that he will proceed directly. He turns to all those present and speaks in a serious, commanding voice. With a dignified motion, the Sword Emperor prepares to deliver his final judgment on the matter. In the name of the Martial Alliance, he offers a sincere apology to everyone present. The protagonist's uncle says he should have taught his disciple more strictly. As an apology to the victim, the leader says he will give ample compensation. But the clan leader states that the clan did nothing. Everything was done by the protagonist. He says the young man accomplished everything on his own through his own merit and strength. Because of this, he cannot accept any compensation for the Tang clan at the moment. The elders and the protagonist remain silent, processing the clan leader words. He then begs the alliance leader to ensure the incident is not distorted. The protagonist thinks the Chunshin sect will spread false rumors to cover their shame. The Sword Emperor assures him that his concerns will not come to pass. With a powerful look, he states that the Tang clan will not be held responsible for what happened. The young man thinks it wasn't a bad outcome as he managed to restore his father's position. The leader says there is one last thing to be done, and the artisan wonders what it could be. With a serious look, the Sword Emperor turns to the protagonist and remains silent. He then approaches the young man and asks a question that surprises everyone in the hall. The Grandmaster of the Martial Alliance asks if the young man would like to become his disciple. The protagonist is shocked by the proposal, wondering if he heard that correctly. The elders whisper that he would be the 5th disciple since Li Ho-song was expelled. Any sect with a disciple of the leader becomes a central power of the Great Martial Alliance. The young man believes the clan may finally have a chance to reclaim its lost glory. The Sword Emperor smiles and says that he is finally showing an expression suitable for his age. With an amused tone, he adds that the young man now truly looks as young as he should. The protagonist's uncle panics, knowing that if the offer is accepted, his power will completely collapse. However, to everyone's shock, the artisan declares that he cannot accept the leader's proposal. Before the uncle can feel relieved, the master cuts in, telling him to rest properly and accompany him. The Sword Emperor is stunned by the refusal and can hardly believe what he has heard. He says this is the first time he has ever been rejected and asks the young man for his reason. The protagonist brings his hands together in a respectful gesture and prepares to answer. With firm resolve, he states that he wishes his one and only master to be the Tang clan. The clan leader is clearly moved by his son's loyalty and heartfelt words. The Alliance master agrees that the reason is reasonable, and the young man thinks to himself that it is fortunate he is not using that technique. He reflects that while the privileges are tempting, to him, they would be a dangerous burden. The leader admits he feels disappointed, and the protagonist agrees, thanking him for the guidance. He says he was deeply impressed by the profound principles of the Wudong sword technique. Surprised by this, the master wonders how the young man was able to see through his technique so clearly. Smiling, he remarks that the young man is truly tempting and that he does not know how to handle him. The Sword Emperor then congratulates the clan leader for nurturing such an outstanding talent. The clan leader expresses his gratitude, but humbly says the praise is too generous and that there must be deeper reasons behind it. The protagonist understands that he cannot be forced to accept the Grandmaster's offer. However, the Sword Emperor declares that he cannot leave empty-handed and slowly unsheathes his sword. As the blade begins to glow, he says he will leave a small debt for the new generation of warriors. He then hands the sword to the young man, explaining that its special qualities will aid him in the future. The elders are stunned when they realize the weapon is the legendary wave moon sword, forged from meteorite. One elder says this act is far more than a gift, as it represents recognition of the young clan leader. The artisan thinks in amazement that material for creating a divine artifact has just fallen into his hands. With a sly smile, he realizes that all preparations for divine creation are now complete. Saying that refusing would be disrespectful, he accepts the gift with gratitude and courtesy. The Sword Emperor then gives him a personal token, explaining that it is meant for times of need. He declares that anywhere on the plains, the young man's request will be treated as his own. The elders are stunned by this level of privilege, unable to understand how he could grant such great authority. The protagonist's uncle is filled with rage, wondering what is so special about that brat. In another place, a man sits in a tavern, drinking with an angry look on his face. He curses his fate and cannot accept what has happened to him. The man is Commander's Sun Yugong, and he blames the protagonist for all of his misfortune. At a nearby table, people are discussing how all of Sichuan is talking about the Tang clan. One man says that the dragon guards received severe punishment because of the incident. His companion adds that the commander was sent away to a distant mountain region. Yugong becomes even angrier, questioning how they could punish him so harshly just for using his techniques. His fist begins to glow red as he swears that he will one day repay the humiliation he has suffered. Back at the Tang clan, knights patrol the corridors with torches, keeping watch. In one of the courtyards, two men stand guard, carefully scanning for any sign of movement. Inside his room, the protagonist sits deep in thought, worried about the current situation. The clan leader has forbidden him from leaving and increased the number of guards to prepare for any possible ambush. The young man tells himself that he cannot be a son who disobeys his father's orders. His eyes fall on the sword he received from the Alliance Master, glowing softly before him. But he knows he cannot simply wait idly. Gripping the sword, the protagonist rises with determination, ready to take action and change his fate. With a confident smile, he admires the gleaming weapon in his hands, prepared for whatever comes next. He whispers to himself that it is time, then leaps nimbly from the roof. On the other side, a guard watches attentively, but notices a strange movement in the distance. He frowns, puzzled, wondering what that sound was breaking the silence. The man stays quiet for a moment, trying to make sense of what is happening. Suddenly, the protagonist slips past two guards without being noticed and continues on his path. He thinks that his own level may have risen, but the squadron's skills still need improvement. He decides that his first task is to go to the forge and craft his main weapon as quickly as possible. With a determined expression, the young man prepares for his next mission, staying alert to any danger. Then, he runs with incredible speed, leaving a faint trail of smoke in his wake. The protagonist reaches the Tang clan village, where all his blood relatives once lived. A memory surfaces, showing the village in ruins, and he reflects on the tragedy. He remembers that everyone had to leave after the attack that destroyed everything. With a sad expression, the young man whispers to himself to wait just a little longer for his revenge. He promises that he will make the clan even more prosperous than it was before the tragedy. With firm resolve, he declares that the first wave of change will begin here. He arrives at the Tang clan's forge, the Hall of 10,000 Irons, ready to begin his work. The young man thinks he should need permission to enter, but assumes no one would be in the forge at this hour. However, when he tries to open the door, he finds it locked from the inside and is immediately surprised. Suddenly, a voice asks what brings him here so late, leaving him completely shocked. He introduces himself cautiously to the master of the hall, realizing he's encountered the one person he had hoped to avoid. The man is the most respected elder in the clan. Even his father treats him with the highest regard. He is a central figure in the Tang clan, though he does not even share the family surname. He is the master of all the clan's blacksmiths and the owner of the Hall of 10,000 Irons. His name is Guan Yin, known as the Black-Handed Artisan and Master Blacksmith. He devoted his life to the clan because of his close connection to the former leader, Dang Yu. The protagonist vividly recalls the day the escort agency became independent, when this master, dedicated to forging divine swords, left the clan alongside Dang Yu. He remembers the master blacksmith staring at him with resentment before turning away. The young man stays silent for a moment, processing the painful memory from his past. He wonders why the master held such feelings toward him back then. Quietly, he apologizes for disturbing the master blacksmith so late at night. He explains that an urgent idea came to him, and he had to act on it immediately. With his arms crossed, the master simply tells him to go ahead and do what he came to do. Surprised by the reply, the protagonist asks if he heard correctly. The blacksmith responds curtly, telling him to stop delaying and get on with it. Suddenly, young Sayo appears at the door and announces that the young clan leader is present. She approaches him, expressing her gratitude for everything he did for her last time. Her expression briefly turns sad as she recalls past events, but the protagonist comforts her, saying he is glad she is alive and safe. The master then mentions that the clan leader has forbidden the young man from leaving for 7 days and 7 nights. He instructs the two of them to leave and not disturb the young man while he is being punished. The artisan realizes that the master is allowing him to use the equipment for his training. The blacksmith calls out to him, and the young man turns to listen. The master pauses, his expression thoughtful and slightly curious, but then simply says to forget it and turns to leave, with young Sayo following at his side. The protagonist is puzzled by the master blacksmith's unusual behavior at that moment. Shaking off his confusion, he decides to set it aside and focus entirely on his main goal. With the forge door open, he steps into the workshop with a serious expression. He reminds himself that he cannot miss this rare opportunity and prepares for the intense work ahead. The young man recalls a saying that for a master, weapons are merely tools to achieve an end. He disagrees completely, thinking it nonsense, because in this world there are divine artifacts that surpass even the greatest martial arts. He eyes one of the swords and scoffs, saying it is pathetic that it is considered medium grade. Grabbing a large forging hammer, he gets ready to begin his work. Studying the weapon, he acknowledges that the master truly deserves his title, yet he knows it is still insufficient. Looking at the other weapons around him, he realizes that the skill level, while impressive, is still not ideal. He reflects that even without the 10 divine artifacts, the blood cult possesses a vast arsenal of powerful weapons. Although not as powerful as the 10 demonic artifacts, the others are even more cruel and devastating. To destroy the divine artifacts, he knows he needs weapons equal to or stronger than them. He puts on his gloves, noting that he normally wouldn't use them for ordinary forging. With a heavy stomp, he activates a mechanism that intensifies the forge's fire. The young man knows that what he is about to do is no ordinary forging. He places the sword into the blazing heat to begin shaping the metal. With a focused expression, he watches every detail of the process carefully. His eyes shine with intensity as he prepares for the difficult work ahead. Memories of the past flash through his mind, his brief moments of joy shattered by the invasion of the blood cult. He recalls waking up in confusion amidst the chaos, unsure of where he was. He remembers walking through the ruins of his home, completely destroyed by the attack. The image of his despair at seeing his home destroyed still haunts him to this day. With his teeth clenched in anger, he recalls the deep pain he felt that day. He wonders how he is still alive as he surveys the scene of total devastation. Then a bitter question arises. Why was he the only one to survive that terrible tragedy? He remembers encountering the demon who called him a creator of artifacts. The villain remarked that it seemed he had mastered a legendary technique from the clan's founder. Bound in chains, the protagonist vowed to take the demon life at any cost. He screamed in pain and fury as the leader of the blood cult tormented him relentlessly. At one moment, the young man sees his own distorted reflection in the metal of his sword, a vision that shocks him. Chains hurl him into the air, his body racked with unbearable pain. The demon then commands him to forge a sword in order to survive, but the artisan defiantly tells him to go to a terrible place, refusing to obey the villain's order. Enraged, the leader of the blood cult drives the sword forcefully into the ground. He taunts the young man, asking if he does not care that his remaining relatives will meet their end. The villain mocks him further, saying it does not matter whether he believes his words or not, and declares that unifying the martial world is only a matter of time for him. The demon king threatens him, saying that next time he will throw pieces of his remaining relatives. The young man thinks that if they're truly alive, he has no choice but to comply. With his fist clenched tightly in hatred, he resolves that if that is the case, he will do whatever it takes. With a defeated and heavy expression, he finally agrees to forge the sword for the villain. The demon explains that artifacts are created based on the martial arts of their wielder. He tells the young man that if he truly wants the sword, he must share his martial arts. From this ordeal were born the 10 demonic weapons and the cruelest artisan, the demonic artisan. The protagonist swears that he will let the blade of vengeance flourish and master 10 martial arts within 15 years. Back in the present, he thinks about his current task and realizes that melting meteorite iron in his forge will be nearly impossible. But with the power of his techniques, he is confident he can melt the metal. The sword's metal finally liquefies, forming a pool of glowing molten metal on the floor. He picks up a large wooden hammer, ready to begin forging his new weapon. With swift and precise movements, the protagonist hammers the molten metal. Next, he dips the blade into a bucket of water to cool it, carefully controlling the process. He envisions creating a weapon that can perfectly block and cut everything. The image of the blood-soaked demon Empress flashes in his mind. He remembers that the celestial silk originally had 9 leaves, but he could only make one due to limited material. However, the artisan tells him it doesn't matter, and a single leaf of silk floats in his hand. With intense focus, he decides that what he wants to create is not just the celestial silk. He aims to forge a thread that far surpasses the strength and power of the original. He begins crafting the celestial silkworm thread, the sister work of the 10 demonic weapons. Black threads wrap around his arms as he skillfully weaves his new weapon. He names it the celestial net. Suddenly, an intruder drops from the forge's ceiling, attacking with a dagger. The protagonist reacts instantly, blocking the surprise strike. The attack is so powerful that the impact nearly throws him to the ground. The intruder is shocked that his blow was blocked. He asks what kind of threat this is, and the artisan remarks that they are careless for an elite unit. The young man quickly recognizes the attacker as the former commander of the Alliance's Dragon Successor Guard. He calls him Sun Yugong, and the man becomes furious as the protagonist comments that he arrived just in time.